Hey guys, welcome back to lesson 3, and I'm going to be showing you how to string an electric guitar today. Okay, so I'm going to be using two things in this video, as this is all you pretty much need. There are other tools out there that you can take a look at in our resources, but what I'd suggest is just a pair of pliers and the strings you want to use. Alright, so let's get started with this. Okay, so we've got the strings that we need to take off the guitar first of all, alright? So here we have our tuning pegs. Now you can unwind them all the way and then roll them up, and you can store them for later use. There is a danger of scratching the surface of your guitar if you do that. So what I generally like to do, take your pliers and you just cut the string. And that way there's less danger of scratching anything on your guitar. Okay, so I'm just going to unwind the rest of the strings and do the same thing. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to cut all of these strings. Okay, so I'm going to take them off the tuning pegs now. Alright, at this stage you can give your guitar a clean. And then let's take off these ones. Yeah, so look, once all the strings are off, you can give your guitar a nice clean. Okay, just be careful if you have a tune-o-matic bridge like this, when you turn the guitar upside down, it might fall off. I'm just going to leave mine here for the meantime. Okay, so next we're going to take our strings, alright? I'm using 10 gauge to 46. And this, what I like to use is GuitaRealm. Okay. Now you can see what I like about this particular brand, GuitaRealm, is that all the balls of the strings are color coded, and they give a nice little color coding system here that says silver for the 10 gauge, which is high E. Then we've got for the B string, we've got the purple, third string, which my 17 gauge is green, black, red, and brass. So it's pretty nice to see and easy to user-friendly to use. So anyway, okay, so let's start with the brass, the gold. Put the rest of the strings down here. Alright, there we go. They've wrapped the E and the A string together. So let's start with the low E string. Alright, so I'm going to thread it through the back of the hole, through the body of the guitar, string through body, okay, now I'm just going to place my bridge over there, and you just place it over where the saddle goes, through the nut, so it goes into the ridge. Make sure it's lining over the correct saddle and over the ridge, and I'm just putting it across like that. And all the strings, the E, the A, and the D string on this particular type of head, the strings are going to go in the middle and then around. So take it through the tuning pegs, like a pathway through the pegs, and you bring it around like that. But we're going to do the low E string. The low E string is the nearest one to the nut. Now what you do is you wrap it around, and you only need to wrap the strings maybe 2 times, 3 times at the most. So I'm going to wrap it once around, make sure that it's alright. You wrap closest to the tip of the tuning peg, not to the head of the guitar. So there you go. I'd say that's just about 2, almost like a 1.5 rounds on this low E string, and then I'm going to string it through the hole in the tuning peg, and you can put it like this. Look, it does take a bit of practice, but I mean, do your best to do it in a similar kind of way. Then I just bend the string up while pulling it on the neck. And then from here you can start tuning it, make it tighter. Okay, that's enough for now. We don't have to tune it to any specific frequency at this stage. And next I'm going to take the A string, and exactly the same way we're going to do the same. Alright, so let's take a look at the D string. Same thing. Just make sure you put it in the right hole. E, A, D, G, B, and E. Bring it over the saddle. I'll put it through like that. And there we go. Okay, so just keep holding the string. And make sure it always stays threaded through the groove in the nut and the groove in the saddle. Okay, so onto the G string. Over the groove in the nut, over the G, but now we're going the other way. See, we're not going that way around, we're going wrap it around the opposite direction. Just take it through once, wrap it around once or twice, thread it through the hole. This stage is a little tricky because you don't want the string to start wrapping around itself. If it does, it's not serious, just carry on with it and live with it. But ideally, you know, the more practice you get, you'll be able to get a nice, neat wrap around the tuning peg without strings crossing over. There we go. I'm going to wrap that through the hole. And can you see I'm alternating between, so the strings always stay tight, you know, until it's tightly wound. You can pull it as well, like this. And there we go. Okay, at this stage it is a good time that if you notice that there's too much of a big space over any wounds, you can just gently push it like this. But this is not like a completely necessary. Okay, then always don't cut too close to the hole. Just make it maybe about the size of a finger. If you cut too close to the hole, sometimes the string will come unwound. So give it a bit of a space for some thread through. Now once all the strings are on the guitar, we're just going to stretch them lightly. I mean very lightly, okay? So you can take just any one of your fingers and just go on all the odd frets and just push down and pull up. So push down with your fretting hand and pull up. Back and forth. And you do it on each string. Just very lightly. Just going on all the odd numbers, the 1, the 3, the 5, the 7, the 9. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, all the way up to 15, 16, 17, 19. Alright, then you go on all the even numbers. Even frets. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So what's actually happening now is your strings are just stretching. Alright, now you're ready to tune. Okay, so we have the strings. What we need to do is just loosen them so we can remove them off of the guitar. Okay, now you can cut them with some pliers like this. Okay, but I prefer only to use these where it's really necessary to avoid scratching the surface of your guitar accidentally. And what we need is a pack of strings. I've got here some nickel bronze acoustic guitar D'Addario strings. I'm going to put some 10 gauge acoustic strings. It's very light for an acoustic guitar, but it's I think for beginners such as yourselves, it's good to play with light gauge strings. It's much easier on the hands. So I'm going to start untuning these strings. Okay, so I've loosened the saddles just beforehand. Sometimes they are a bit difficult to remove. So all you do is you take the saddle out and you just pull the string out like that. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do with all of them. You just put the saddle back in just so you don't lose it. Alright, so that's all the strings removed. Now we're going to put the new strings in the same way we took them out. Right, well, I'm going to start off with the low E string first. Okay, so the low E string here is this one. If you're confused, just look at the back of the pack of strings and it should guide you as to which one is the low E string. So all I'm doing is placing it in that hole there, putting the saddle in where the saddle is hollow in the middle. So you just kind of, you want the string to squeeze into the saddle, kind of like that. And then you pull the string out just so, you don't have to push them too firmly in, otherwise it's going to be too difficult to get them out again. Okay, so then the same with the A string. Put the ball of the string into the hole, saddle pushes it down. There you go. Now I'm going to do the same with the D, the G, the B, and the high E. Same way, you just put the ball of the string into the hole, and you put the saddle down, and then you pull the string up. Just a bit. Okay, let's do it with the G. Okay, so once we've placed the saddles into the strings into the saddles and they're firmly there, we're going to start winding them into the tuning pegs. So starting off with the low E string again. Okay, always make sure it fits over the nut, groove of the nut, the groove that's closest to the top of the nut. Alright, so from here we're going all the pegs at the top of the head. Alright, the strings are going to go nearest to the middle of the head, in that direction around the tuning peg. So I'm putting it over the groove in the nut, and the string is going into the middle of the head of the guitar, and then you put it up around, only around the tuning peg, the first tuning peg, because that's the one the low E string is going to go into. Okay, you just need to wrap it around twice. Once is sometimes even just fine enough. You don't want to do it too much, otherwise there's too much string to stretch and your guitar will be out of tune for too long. Alright, so so then once I've pulled it through the hole of the pin, of the pin of the tuning peg, you keep it pulled, and then I pull the other half of the string through the nut, just so it tightens the loop around the pin of the tuning peg. Then I bend the string up towards the sky. Alright, and while still pulling it with my right hand, I'm going to start tuning the peg. Okay, so now I'm going to go onto the A string, the second thickest string. Alright, so same principle. Through the groove in the nut, we're going to thread it to the middle of the guitar, and then we're just going to wrap it around the second peg towards the sky, okay? I'm going to wrap it around just once or twice, and then through the pin. As it goes into the hole in the pin of the tuning peg, make sure the string is always as close to the face of the head as possible. Okay, then you put it with your right hand, I'll bend that towards the sky, or the face of the head. Okay, moving on to the G string. Right, we put it through the groove of the nut just to hold it in alignment. Then you put it into the middle of the guitar. Now, because we're dealing with the 3 pegs that are on the bottom of the head, we're going to move it from the middle down to the ground. Alright, and I'm going to be, because it's the G, I'm going to be using the peg furthest away. Alright, so I wrap it around just once or twice and I feed it through the pin. Alright. It takes a bit of experience, but we need to try and have it as neat as possible, the wounds. It's not terrible if you don't get it all neat. Not the end of the world. It won't make a difference to the sound, but it is nice to have it looking nice and neatly wound around the tuning peg. Alright, then lastly, we're going to go do the high E string. Alright. The same thing, you put it through the groove of the nut, as close to the middle as possible, around the peg towards the ground, and then you just thread it once or twice. The thinner the string, the more you need to wind it. So I'm just going to do it 2 or 3 times around this one. Through the peg. There you go. That's it. And try to put it towards the sky. Put it with, while still being through the groove in the saddle. And you can start tuning it tighter. Turning it so the string gets tighter. Okay, so now the one thing that is not a good idea is to have these things sticking out, because you might end up poking yourself in the eye or somebody else. So let's get rid of them. Okay, we don't want to cut them too short. Just maybe about 1 finger above the stringers should be fine. Maybe just a little bit less than that. You don't want to cut it too short, because sometimes the strings, when they're getting adjusted into the guitar, they actually dig a little. This part actually goes into the guitar. It kind of gets sucked as this gets looser, and if it's not wound properly, and it might just end up coming undone. So always just wait for your strings to settle in a bit before you actually cut them as well. And you know for sure that's not going to happen. Alright, so that's how you string an acoustic guitar. But just remember, once you've strung the guitar, you've got to tune it to a tuner, tune the guitar, and also don't forget to stretch the strings. Alright, just to stretch them in, and then you tune it up again, stretch them some more, tune it in again, and then your guitar should be good to go. Okay, so now we're going to be stringing the hardtail bridge guitar. I've got an old school Fernandez guitar here that I'm going to string for you. Okay, so first of all, just make sure that your strings are detuned and loose. And I'm just going to cut these. But like I said, you can take them out without cutting them if you want to use them at a later stage for other things, But I wouldn't suggest playing on strings for too long. Alright, then I'm going to thread out the hardtail bridge. A couple of them have fallen out already. There we go, they just fell out. Okay, at this stage you can clean your guitar. This guitar needs a clean. But I mean, you can just grab some kind of polish at your music store, or you can just, if you're not too worried about it, just get something, you know, a furniture store product. Alright, so now I'm going to put on the low E string, which is the gold one on the set of the Dario strings. There. Right, so at the back of this type of Fender looking guitar, you can see that there are, on the actual bridge itself, it comes through, and this is got some springs that keep this bridge, because it's actually, if you put in a whammy bar, you can actually, this bridge is floating, so it can increase and decrease the tension of the strings, giving it this like type of sound as you move the bar. Okay, so I'm just going to thread it through the low E string hole. As it is the low E string. Right, I just took the cover off just so it's easier for the video, but it actually has a cover that goes over here. But that's the low E string. It's come straight through the low E string saddle. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to take the string and thread it through the low E string groove on the nut, and that's going to bring the string perfectly just so I can thread it, well, roll it from under the machine head, the tuning peg. Okay, I'm just going to wrap it around once. All right, you can do twice, but it does create problems if it's too many wounds around there, because then the strings have a lot more stretching to do, and that's going to make your guitar go out of tune as you play it when the strings are newly on your guitar. But you know, there is stretching that you do on the strings to help speed up that process. Okay. Alright, there we go. Okay, so now I've got the A string. Gonna thread it through the back into the A hole saddle. Alright, so that's the A string hole in the saddle. And comes out. The A string saddle goes straight into the groove on the nut, the A string nut. Obviously it doesn't say that, you just need to know your strings, you know, E, A, D, G, B, and E. So just make sure you know the strings, so you know which string is the string and which saddle to string it through. Okay, then it goes under this A string tuning peg. It's threaded through, and I wrap it around the top just once or twice. Now you've got to try and get the string just on top of the loop, okay, into the hole again, and that will get the string wounds to force against each other, and that friction causes the string to stick and stay. Alright. I'm just going to bend it up and hold it down while I tune it. Alright, then I'll just hold it down so it stays in the groove of the nut, and I can tighten. Just pull that up. Okay, so that's your E and your A strings done so far. Okay, so I did the D and the G just to speed up the process. It's done exactly the same way. And now I'm going to do the B string, alright. So let's just grab it out of here. Okay, so now I'm going to just same thing, you thread it through the B string hole in the bridge. Through the B string saddle. And then you wrap it through, well, place it through the B string groove in the nut. And on this guitar it has another type of nut that you just got to thread under through the groove. There's two, one for the B string and one for the high E string. And I'll bring it under the B string tuning peg. I'm going to wrap it around. With the thinner strings, you can wrap it around 2 or 3 times, okay? As they are a lot thinner, they need a lot more string to stay on the tuning peg. Alright. There we go. Okay, I'm going to pull that. I'm just going to pull this so it tightens nice and neatly over there. There we go. And I'm just going to bend it up so it hooks while I'm tightening the string. Alright. Alright, so finally we're on to the high E string. Just exactly as all the others, you know, just this time it's going into the high E string hole in the hardtail bridge. Okay, there we go, threading it through. Make sure it's all the way through the high E string saddle. And I'm going to thread it through the high E string groove in the nut and under the second nut, the groove that's there for it. And I'm going to wrap it around a couple of times, thread it through the hole again. Make sure you thread it through on top of the string wound, and then I'll pull it up tight just to give it a little bit of grip, and I'm going to tighten it while pulling. Okay. Alright, so now before we give the guitar a string cut, a haircut, okay, we're going to stretch the string. So I suggest going on all the odd frets all the way up to the end of the fretboard, and you're just going to take your strongest finger and you just tap, and then you pull, tap and pull. Okay, I'm just doing it really quickly just so it's not too much of a bore. And then you do it all the same on the even frets, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on. Alright, going on to the B string. You should do this a lot slower, you know, I'd recommend going lightly, like that. But I'm just going to do it quickly, alright. Okay, and finally we're going to cut the strings, okay? I just say put your finger on top, and maybe just on top of your finger, maybe slightly lower than that, you can cut it. Don't cut it too low, you know, the string does have might slip through, and then if it's too shortly cut, your whole string might just come undone. So I'll just give it a bit of room, but not enough to go and make someone lose their eye. Alright, and there we have it. Anyway guys, now you've done the stringing of the guitar, and in the next lesson we're going to be doing the tuning of the guitar. Now that's why I showed you how to stretch the strings, just so you can get the tuning down right, because if your strings aren't stretched, every time you tune, they're going to go out of tune. Okay, anyway, just a little tip. So see you in the next lesson. Have a good one.